If you lived 2,000 years ago, money would already be failing you. Not because you spent too much, not because you made bad decisions, but because the people in charge were quietly removing the silver, shaving down the coins, diluting them, replacing them with cheaper metals until the money itself became a lie. The shocking part? The same pattern has repeated through the Roman Empire, the Ming Dynasty, the Ottoman Empire, the British Empire, and now the modern world. And the ending is eerily similar every time. By the end of this story, you'll see the 2,000-year pattern so clearly that you'll know exactly what stage we're in today and what it predicts about the next crash. And like Finney used to say, money doesn't disappear, it just goes somewhere quieter. Every civilization eventually learns the same uncomfortable truth. Money isn't just a tool, it's a story, a fragile story. And once the storytellers get greedy, the ending is always the same. To understand that pattern, we rewind to when the world's greatest superpower had a money problem. Picture this. The year is 64 AD. Rome is enormous, invincible, unmatched. But it also has bills, wars, roads, aqueducts, palaces, bread, circus games, an entire city to rebuild after the Great Fire. And instead of raising taxes and risking revolt, Rome discovered a simpler solution. They changed the money. The silver denarius. It started with a tiny adjustment, 1% less silver. Nobody complained, so they tried 5%. Then 10. Still no riots. Inflation ticked up slowly. Common people barely noticed. That's the first stage of the pattern. Stage 1, the quiet dilution. Rome thought it had unlocked a cheat code, but you can't cheat math, and like Finney used to say, shortcuts are just long cuts with better lighting. Imagine working your entire life, saving in silver coins, only to realize the government is replacing the silver with tin. Over 2 centuries, the denarius fell from 95% silver to less than 1%. That's not inflation. That's sabotage in slow motion. And when trust collapses, empires crack. Jump ahead to the 14th century. The Ming Dynasty, one of the most powerful civilizations on Earth. They created one of the first major paper currencies, the Ming Biocho. It was brilliant, until the government printed too much. So came the wars, corruption, infrastructure, court expenses. They printed instead of reforming. In the end, the currency became so worthless that villagers used it as wallpaper. Literally, wallpaper. Like Finney used to say, when money becomes decoration, your economy's already redecorating itself. The Ming Dynasty collapsed shortly after. Different continent, different culture, same outcome. That's the second stage of the pattern. Stage 2, the acceleration. Once governments realize printing money works, they do it more, faster, sloppier, until the public wakes up. When people lose trust in money, they behave differently. They spend faster, they stop saving. They trade in anything except the currency. Salt, silk, rice, silver, gold, anything that can't be printed. This is when crashes become inevitable, not because of markets or interest rates, but because people stop believing the story of the money. Move to the 1800s, the Ottoman Empire, once terrifyingly powerful, was drowning in debt. European banks lent them massive sums at high interest, assuming they would always pay. They couldn't to survive. They didn't reform. They borrowed more. They debased the currency. They issued more paper. They inflated until the debt became bigger than the empire itself. That's stage 3, the debt spiral, a point where printing money isn't optional. It's the only thing keeping the system alive. And like Finney used to say, a debt spiral is like juggling knives. Looks cool until gravity reminds you it exists. By this stage, if you laid the charts of Rome, the Ming Dynasty, and the Ottomans side by side, you'd see the same curve, and it always ends the same way. Currency collapse, social unrest, economic reset, new system. Now we move to the British Empire. For over 2 centuries, the British pound was the world's reserve currency. Strong, stable, respected. Then came to world wars. Britain financed both by printing money and taking on enormous debt. By 1945, the empire was exhausted. The pound lost power, gold reserves drained. And in 1949, the UK devalued the pound by 30% overnight. Go to bed with $1,000, wake up with 700. That wasn't a market crash, it was a currency reset. The empire didn't vanish, but the era ended, and the world chose a new storyteller, the United States. Which brings us to today. The US dollar is the global reserve currency. Trust in it is the backbone of the world economy. But over the past 50 years, money supply has exploded. Debt has skyrocketed. Asset prices detached from reality. Governments discovered the magic of quantitative easing, which is just modern language for printing money. Since leaving the gold standard in 1971, the dollar has lost 87% of its purchasing power. Not because of disaster, but because inflation became the system. Today, US national debt is over $33 trillion. Global debt exceeds $315 trillion. Money creation is the fastest in human history. Asset bubbles are everywhere. We are deep into stage 3, the debt spiral. But here's the twist. Unlike Rome, Ming China, or the Ottomans, This time, the entire world is synchronized. Europe, China, Japan, the US, emerging markets, all using the same playbook, all accelerating together. This isn't one empire approaching a reset. It's the whole global monetary system. If the pattern is real, and it hasn't missed once in 2,000 years, we are approaching the part of the story where the old system buckles. What breaks first? Bonds, banks, debt, the currency. And more importantly, what replaces it? Like Finney used to say, when everyone's kicking the can. It just means the cliff is getting closer. Every empire reaches a moment where the math stops working. Rome hit that moment when their silver content fell below 5%. The Ming Dynasty hit it when inflation passed 500%. The Ottomans hit it when interest payments exceeded tax revenue. The British hit it when gold reserves drained faster than they could print IOUs. For modern economies, the breaking point isn't silver, gold, or paper. It's debt. The first thing that collapses in a debt-driven system is the cost of servicing the debt itself. Here's how you know a system is entering danger. Governments rely on borrowing instead of taxing. Interest payments grow faster than GDP. Central banks print money to suppress yields. Inflation rises. Public trust cracks. Everyone calls it temporary. Suddenly, it's not. Like Finney used to say, crashes don't happen suddenly, just the moment everyone notices. Think of the system like a skyscraper, made of matches. 0% interest rates glued it together for 14 years. Then rates shot up faster than at any time in history. Mortgage rates tripled. Corporate borrowing costs doubled. Banks holding long-term bonds revealed massive unrealized losses. If this were Rome, we'd call it currency rot. If this were the Ming Dynasty, we'd call it overprinting. If this were the Ottomans, we'd call it imperial overreach. Today, we call it monetary policy. Same pattern, different phrasing. Here's the truth nobody likes to say. Crashes aren't accidents. They're resets. Nature's way of clearing debts, bad bets, and illusions that grew faster than reality. Rome, hyperinflation, tax revolt, empire split. Ming China, currency collapse, uprisings, dynasty fall. Ottomans, bankruptcy, foreign control. British Empire, devaluation, end of dominance. When money expands too fast, crashes restore balance, not because the system failed, but because it worked until it couldn't. Like Finney used to say, a bursting bubble is just gravity reminding optimism who's boss. Systems don't fail when numbers get too big. They fail when people stop believing. When money loses value faster than people can earn it, they stop trusting, stop saving, stop playing by the old rules. Trust doesn't return with speeches or rate cuts. It returns only after a reset. So what does the 2,000-year pattern predict? Not doom, not apocalypse, transition. Here are the signs. We're in the late stage. Everything is debt-backed. Inflation is sticky. Trust is fracturing. People shift to gold, crypto, land, collectibles, anything but cash. When citizens diversify away from their own currency, the reset is already in motion. Historically, resets follow 3 steps. Step 1, inflation, then deflation. Step 2, currency repricing devaluation, officially or silently. Step 3, a new monetary system. New rules, new story, new era. Like Finney used to say, money never dies, it just changes clothes. Everyone wants to know when, tomorrow, next year, a decade. But crashes don't run on calendars. They run on pressure, interest rates, debt markets, inflation cycles, public trust. When pressures align, the system shifts. The question isn't when the next crash happens. It's where you'll be positioned. That's what separates people who get wrecked from people who get wealthy. No fear, no panic, just strategy. People who understand the pattern always survive crises better than those who ignore it. Resets transfer wealth from people holding the wrong assets to people holding the right ones. 5 timeless principles. 1. Save in things that hold value, land, cash flow businesses, hard assets, diversified investments. 2. Keep debt manageable. Crashes punish debt, resets reward discipline. 3. Stay adaptable. Systems reset, but adaptable people win. 4. Watch behavior. Trust tells the truth before charts do. 5. Invest consistently. Wealth survives through strategy, not panic. At its core, money is a promise, a shared belief, a story we agree to trust. That's what makes it powerful and fragile. You're not living at the end of a system. You're living at the beginning of its next version. And like Finney used to say, crashes don't erase wealth. They reveal who understood the plot. Empires dilute, people adapt. Systems reset. New eras begin. Today, we're approaching the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Your job isn't to predict the exact moment. Your job is to understand the pattern, so when the story turns the page, you're not caught off guard. You're ahead of it. Money comes and goes. Wisdom stays. And wisdom is what you've just earned. So stay curious, stay disciplined, stay adaptable. And remember, like Finney used to say, not every acorn needs to be a forest. Some just need to survive winter.